For the first time in India's history, the credit card dues of Indians has crossed the 2 lakh crore rupee mark. That's right, 2 lakh crore rupees. Indians owe more than 2 lakh crore rupees on their credit cards. And that's for the month of April 2023, as of the month of April 2023. And it's a near 30% growth from the same period last year, as in April 2022. But the fact of the matter is that less than 5% Indians own a credit card. So what exactly is going on over here? Karthik, less than 5% Indians own credit cards, more than 2 lakh crore rupees. And now the third category, it's in terms of the overall dues, loan, personal loan category. Now you have housing loans, auto loans, and credit cards. And the percentage of credit card dues in that pie has just doubled.
Yeah, so Krishna, I don't know how to look at this story. I'll tell you my initial observations. Up until now, whenever we saw a surge in credit card spending in the economy, it was a sign akin to, let's say, the Industrial Revolution and smoke billowing out of chimneys across the US. It was a sign pretty much akin to that, hey, there is demand in the economy. There is consumption happening in the economy. And credit cards used for white goods, high value purchases, involved purchases, sort of, reflected the sentiment that the economy is growing and there is consumption for whatever is being produced, and that consumption is being met by individuals who are buying those products and services using credit cards. Now there's another way to look at it, and the other way to look at it is there are 2 lakh crore rupees due which people are purchasing on credit rather than on cash. 2 lakh crore rupees worth of goods and services have been purchased in the economy, perhaps because people were unable to pay for them using their debit cards. So you've got to look at the story in both sides and try and discern for yourself which is the story you want to believe. And unfortunately, I believe whatever economic growth we have seen has not come on the back of consumption. The economic growth, the GDP figures that we see every day, and we are all proud of them, those pretty much suggest that the GDP growth has come on account of government spending and on account of investments, not on account of consumption. So consumption is being driven largely on credit, and that, to my mind, is not a great sign. Because now, I'll give you some context. Credit card balances as a way of loans on the books of banks is at about 1.4% right now. When was the last time it was in excess of 1%? Just before the 2008 financial crisis, it was at 1.2%. And that is when we saw credit card defaults. Now, what happened? We were still largely insulated from the Lehman Brothers crisis, but yet there was a dent to India's growth. Now, what happens is you're sort of purchasing your goods and services on credit without enough money in your bank accounts. Companies are not doing great. Job losses are high or on the anvil. You end up losing your job. This becomes bad debt for a bank. A bad debt is equal to an NPA. Right. So we saw 1.2% on the books of banks as credit card dues just ahead of 2008, and almost 30% of those resulted in defaults. Right now, we are at 1.4%. Now, since 2019, and remember 2019 is when India's consumption story started dwindling a little bit. Not too many people wrote about it or spoke about it, and thereafter there was 2020, the global pandemic, and whatever blame was to be squarely put on any reduction in economic activity was put squarely on the pandemic. But troubles had started brewing in 2019, and 2019 credit card dues were about 1% of the bank's total loans. Now, it has gradually increased to 1.4%. So, it sort of augurs not very well in favor of the consumption story, to my mind. Rather, this need to stay afloat with goods and services that you need to purchase for which you don't have enough money. So you, instead of seeking a personal loan which comes at a high interest rate, you are financing your requirements through credit. And yeah, 5% Indians holding credit cards is still a large number. So, you know, I wouldn't read too much into only 5% Indians owning credit cards. I think given an average population of what, 1.3, 1.4 trillion is our population right now. Sorry, 140 crores is our population. Now, each family, let's say with even 4 people, 2 minors, perhaps actually in rural area more than 4 members, but many minors, many single incomes. So the single income population in India is in any case, I mean, you know, bread earners in the country would be no more than about 20% of the population. Right. So 1 out of every 4 bread earners owning a credit card, to my mind, is a fairly large number.
Right, it's definitely more than the number of people, the percentage of people who invest in stock markets, which still remains at 2%. It is more than the number of people who have insurance policies in this country. It is roughly the same number as the number of people who have insurance policies in this country. So it's a huge number. Let's not forget that. The only question is that, you know, when the percentage is so low, but the dues keep rising. So what is going on over there? The other question I want to ask you, Karthik, is this. The other way of looking at it is that consumption, they say, did grow over the course of the last 1 year because of, you know, a benign interest rate regime over the course of the last 1 year, which sort of got jacked up, you know, with the birth of this year, and that's showing on the growth, you know, during the course of the year, hoping for rate cuts in the last quarter of this year or later, you know, doubtful on that. Fact of the matter is that inflation growing along with consumption also means that you're buying the same amount of things with the same amount of money, but your credit card dues keep going up because the cost of things have just gone up.
Absolutely. So consumption also increasing over the last 1 year, like you said, is maybe the same or reduced amount of consumption, but consuming goods and services at a higher price. So is the case with credit cards. So is there an absolute increase in consumption, or is there a dollar value increase in consumption? So similarly, if you're buying, like you said, if you're buying those same goods and services on credit rather than with cash, then obviously the credit card balances also swell up in a percentage to inflation. Now, inflation last year, and very rightly pointed out, last year we were seeing inflation in the range of about 6%, 6.5% upwards. It reduced to what, 6.1 or something. This year we are targeting about 4%. But credit card Y-on-Y increase between April 2022 and April 2023 is exactly 7%. So it's pretty much in line with inflation and nothing else.
Right. In fact, you track inflation, you see how the credit card spends have gone up. Another question, this is a tangential one, being a devil's advocate question. They say, you know, as India progresses towards being a developed economy, greater urbanization, you know, there is something called as credit worthiness. And everybody's credit worthiness has to be measured. In the US, from your social security number onwards, everybody's credit worthiness is measured, tracked. When you want to go take a home loan or an auto loan, you're clearly told at what interest rates that you'll be getting it under. Whereas as far as India is concerned, largely unorganized when it comes to identifying credit worthiness. You have like startups and, you know, individual, you know, evangelistic people, you know, trying to give you a credit score. But the fact of the matter is that greater credit card usage and greater penetration of credit card also means more organization in the credit worthiness of the Indian market.
No doubt. So CIBIL is, I think, the only rated agency tasked with identifying CIBIL score or credit worthiness. Right. Now, unfortunately, in India, just given your credit worthiness, you cannot negotiate your rate of interest for a loan that you take from a bank. Unlike how it happens in the US or even the UK, developed economies, where if your credit worthiness is high and even if the loan amount that you seek is low, you have a better negotiating power. In this case, unfortunately, that privilege is given only to corporate loans and industries which take multiple hundreds of crores of loans from banks. For example, going back to the Go First story, I think Go First would have been able to negotiate a better than market interest rate on its loan that it took from these 4 banks that we mentioned. Right. In the case of individuals, you may have a great credit score, Krishna, but when you go knocking at a bank's door to get an auto loan, I know you've been wanting to buy a car for a very long time, or a home loan which you're not interested in. But when you go knocking, even if the value of that loan is high, you may want to buy a penthouse in the sector that you live in Noida, which may cost you 2.5-3 crore rupees. But that large a volume of loan, despite a great CIBIL score, because you don't have any other loans on your books, is not going to give you any bargaining power. Right. But a corporate entity let's say even wanting to take a 20 crore rupee loan, going to a bank will be able to negotiate the rate better.
Corporate entities have bargaining power after they default on the loan as well.
Absolutely. And they are the ones who default more, and we are the ones who are sort of funding that growth for them.
Yeah, incredible, incredible. And, just one last thing. Are you also, are we at that stage where, those fears regarding credit cards, those irrational use of credit cards, and irrational issue of credit cards? If you see these, I talk to analysts, how come the credit card spends are going up so much? 2008, you're talking about the defaults, but you see the way credit cards were handed out like candy in 2008 is not the case anymore today. So there is more vigilance from the part of banks, and the entire banking ecosystem as to who is given what credit card and what is the limit that they have on the credit card. Are you looking at a more evolved credit card market in this country as we go by?
So I'll tell you, you're right. So, I think what I agree with there is the limit on credit cards. But you go to a mall, you go even to an airport, right? Or you pick up any unknown number ringing on your phone. There are people still offering you credit cards. I'm not sure they know your credit worthiness, but they are still offering you credit cards. I think what banks are still trying to do is they're trying to elicit responses to credit card offers. So they will call you, they will hound you, they will get you to fill up a form. If nothing else, at least they have your phone number and your email ID, through which they could then possibly check through CIBIL what your credit worthiness is and then decide to hound you further or not, right? But I think banks also try to test waters. The uninitiated who don't have a credit card or don't have a loan yet, there's no way for their CIBIL ranking to reflect anything anything alarming about them one way or another. So banks would start with a small credit worthiness of, let's say, 8,000 rupees, 12,000 rupees, 15,000 rupees and test waters. Now, if you continue to pay your dues on time, the banks will keep increasing your credit limit as your life cycle as a customer continues with that particular bank or that credit card issuer. But the RBI has also become a little guarded in that sense to, let's say, kill what we saw as neobanks. These were banks that did not have physical offices. These were neobanks which were offering credit services, banking services, especially credit cards. And we had the likes of Uni Credit Card and Slice Credit Card, which were very hot subjects till about 18 months ago. And these were credit cards being gifted to you in a nice box with a personalized note and a gift and discount coupons and whatnot. But the RBI has come heavily upon them. I think with fear of easy money being given on the back of venture capitalists to individuals like you and me to spend and perhaps default on, and those defaults accruing to the books of the neobanks, which don't really have brick and mortar outlets to go and sort of grab their collars
by.
So that entire story is also sort of, it hasn't given the kind of offtake to the credit card industry as it could have. For right or wrong, we don't know. I think this was something that was
That's a
that
good
was
point
done.
you make. I was about to say right or wrong, Karthik, but we live in a country which looked at credit as something that's not good.
Yeah.
Aaj nakad, kal udhar.
Correct.
Is the country that we come from. And here we are with more than 2 lakh crore rupees of credit card dues, and that's dues. We're looking at more than 1.2 lakh crore rupees of spends apart from that. You're put together, Indians have gone out and have spent more than 3 lakh crore rupees. For which they paid for 1 lakh crore, they're yet to pay for 2 lakh crore rupees. It's incredible. And, we'll have to wait and watch as to how Indians take to credit cards going forward. I remember, just 20 years ago, or even 2008 during the financial crisis, it was, the trepidation of, and then people chopping down their credit cards because they can't just, stop using them. That's the kind of, martial law that you have to impose on yourself to make sure you control your credit card spends. But clearly, it's not working so far to more than 2 lakh crore rupees worth of dues. We'll have to see how that pans out.